So thank you all for sending all of those pictures of your pet friends. When we first had the idea for a PowerPoint, we had no idea we would get so many pictures. I heard some of you saying, or at least thinking, "Aw," during the animal blessing today. Our pets do bring a lot of joy into our lives. They bring a little extra love and an opportunity to be still sometimes, and a chance, most of all, to step out of our own worried heads and into the present moment. Of course, pets aren't everyone's cup of tea. We all need ways that we can pause and have a little moment of ah or aw. We talk a lot here at Tapestry about doing better for the world and for ourselves and for our families. We can talk about growth and challenge and inspiration a lot. But today we remember that sustainable growth requires a balance of challenge with some real comfort. And the comfort side of that balance is very, very important. Before we dive into the ways of helping ourselves feel more comfortable and safe, I want to talk for just a minute about how emotions are actually made in our body, because the thought on this topic has changed a lot. For a long time, psychologists talked about sadness, happiness, joy, anger, and other emotions with the idea that all people experience these specific things as if they were somehow material reality. We believe that they were common among all humans. But more recently, through medical research, we're learning that's not how it works at all. There's no shared physical reality for a single emotion. Scientists have measured vital signs in heart rate and blood pressure and temperature, even brain scans. And what we call happy or sad shows up in a huge variety of ways in individual bodies. Emotions aren't material realities. They're concepts that we create together within a community, kind of like money. A $1 bill has real value because we recognize it as a community. And the concept of sad or happy becomes real because we recognize it as a community. In our individual bodies, we experience a flood of sensations. We experience pleasure and pain through the sense of touch, and all our other sensations send messages to the brain. Those are filtered through memory, and based on that input, a brain sends a waterfall of chemical reactions and electronic pulses. All that data and raw experience of nerves is incredibly complicated and unique for each person. But in our deep desire to relate to one another, we come up with some words like happy or sad or angry. And we borrow words from our culture to better understand each other and to describe our experiences. That's a little complicated and maybe more than you wanted to know. But this is the important part. Because our emotional lives are basically our bodies responding to the world around us, the best place to start to deal with emotions might be dealing with our bodies. The foundation of developing emotional health is basically what your mother told you or what any health professional has told you your whole life. Get enough sleep, eat a balanced diet, drink plenty of water, exercise. Try new things every once in a while to stimulate your brain. Those basic health habits aren't just for our bodies, they're for our mind as well. They give us the basic tools we need to process that flood of stimulation. Sorry to say there's no magic pill. Well, there are some, not magic pills, but there are pills. But without those, to cultivate balance and happiness, the best place we can start is healthy habits. The other helpful tip that I want to spend more time on is about elevating our mood by taking a break. We can dramatically impact our emotional well-being by the way we treat our bodies and what we surround ourselves with. On a very small scale, one way to reset your mind in the moment is to go to the bathroom and wash your hands. And I know it sounds like a very small thing, but hear me out. The walk there, the different space and lighting in that space, the feel of warm water, the sound of running water, the smell of the soap, and the literal cleaning, all of that sensation combines to offer a really small moment of reset from whatever was going on. Sometimes, though, going to wash your hands doesn't always do the trick. Sometimes we need a little more intentional care and time. This has been an important realization for me in recent years. Restoration time has to be more than time away from the demands of work or family commitments. It needs to be time for something that actually recharges me. If I while away the time scrolling through social media or eating junk food or watching bad television, the chances are pretty slim that I'm going to come back to life enthusiastic to get back to it. Time away is important, but it also matters how we spend that time. And we all need a few options. One of the ways I relax and find some grounding is watching a show called The Midwife. It's a BBC series about a team of midwives at a convent in working-class London in the 50s and 60s. And yes, it is incredibly wholesome, which can be very refreshing in today's world. There is some drama and bad stuff happens, but you know that things will wrap up with some hope or some lesson by the end of each episode. For me, it's a great antidote to the violence and cynicism that dominates media. It's also fun to watch a different culture of 1960s England. In an episode that I watched recently, and I won't give anything away too much, there's a train derailment, and it's a big deal with fatalities and major injuries, and of course it's near the convent, so it turns into a first aid station. One of the scenes that caught my attention as I was thinking about this sermon was the incredible burden of providing enough tea for all those people in crisis. Yes, tea, apparently, is an emergency necessity. It's amazing how varied our sources of comfort can be. One form of comfort that I personally cannot understand is the weighted blanket. My sister-in-law and my niece both love a weighted blanket. If you haven't seen these, it's a normal size blanket, like a throw blanket, but it weighs 15 pounds or more. Lots of people love them. But man, it gives me a panic attack. I feel like I'm being buried alive. One person's cozy blanket is another person's terror. But I will say, the Bonfanti contractor family turned me onto Squishmallows recently, and they are incredibly squishy, huggably stuffed animals, and they are amazing. For some people, a hot bath really does the trick. A minute ago, I talked about a quick reset of washing your hands. I guess a hot bath is a more elaborate, longer version of that. Of course, you need a little bit of time and privacy. That alone is a treat for some people, especially parents. Maybe you add some Epsom salt to the hot water for extra release of tension or muscle pain. Maybe some lavender scent or eucalyptus. Maybe some music or just silence. Taking time to relax, maybe to catch up on some pleasure reading or to stare at the ceiling or even get a cold eye mask to put over your eyes. Of course, no bath would be complete without a fluffy towel when you're finished. There are lots and lots of options. You can spend a lot of money on experiences to treat yourself. I find that I enjoy the relaxing stuff even more when it doesn't have a huge price tag attached, because that just stresses me out. But that's up to each person. The important project is to identify what brings you comfort, and to identify a few different sources of comfort that aren't so hedonistic that they have health consequences. Like, I love ice cream, but I try really hard for it not to be a nightly affair. So showing compassion for ourselves can happen on the outside. It can also happen on the inside pretty well. You've probably heard, I know you've heard from me. Oh dear. Jesse, compassion is one of the key mind states in Buddhism. One very popular form of meditation is exercising that feeling of compassion for ourselves and for others. I love this exercise because it's an opportunity to identify the physical sensation of the emotion of compassion. For a lot of people, it's a sensation that happens in their chest, kind of a warmth or an energy there. I'm sure it feels different for different people, though. In this type of meditation, you pause to think about yourself or someone that you care about and summon that feeling of compassion for them. And there's something magical when we take time to cultivate compassion for ourselves. There's a layering effect that happens that builds and grows. At one layer, we get the experience of giving compassion. And I know it sounds strange, but that experience itself is a nice, calming feeling. Another layer occurs, though, when we allow ourselves to be the recipient of that compassion. Even when the compassion is coming from ourselves, knowing that we are held and loved in the moment can feel incredibly comforting. And finally, in that combination, that cycle of giving and receiving, we come to realize our own strength, our ability to be present to and to heal our own wounds. I know it sounds kind of woo-woo for some of you, but it has helped many, many of us in this room. And meditation can be a little bit of a silly word. Zen Buddhists often call it sitting. That's really all it is. You don't need a beautiful singing bowl or incense. You don't need a meditation cushion or a special space. Offering yourself compassion can happen anytime, any place, in a couple of breaths or in a 45-minute session of sitting. Keep it simple. Between surviving a pandemic, some wacky January 6th stuff that's still unfolding, a fragile economy, climate-fueled weather emergencies, and who knows what else, we are all in a little bit of shock and overwhelm. You are not alone. We are all in a little bit of shock and overwhelm. So I want to end this sermon not with instructions about something that you should do. I want to end this with giving you permission to do some of the things you want to do. Things that give you joy. Things that waste your time. Things that are silly. I thought about handing out permission slips, but I couldn't write them for you. Only you know what type of rest and joy your soul longs for. Not that you need it, but you have our permission. Take a breath. Relax some of that tension and take a moment for joy. Amen.